This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen. Bless God and welcome again to Voiceover In and Out. Today we're on session number 5 already. Today what we need to talk about is we need to talk about predictable patterns. We've brought up that subject before as it relates to voiceover and learning the fundamentals. And I did get a question via email that I'm going to address later today on closing apps. We'll go over that. So if you're here, know that we're gonna try to make sure there's time for that as well. But right now, we're going to, get into these predictable patterns in apps. So far, we've looked at the basic fundamentals, the basic patterns. We know some fundamentals already, right? We absolutely know that if we swipe with one finger to the left and to the right, we will move throughout the entire screen. And most times we can just keep swiping left and right. We can also tap randomly on the screen, which is called Explore by Touch. We understand that as we continue to become more and more familiar with VoiceOver and the individual apps that we're using, the tapping does not have to be so random anymore. That now if we know that a particular icon is at the upper right corner of the screen, we can tap with one finger at the upper right corner of the screen and we'll either land directly on or very close to whatever we're trying to tap on. We also know that we can drag our finger across or around the screen, although most of us on the team don't recommend that. We do not recommend that because it basically tends to be very imprecise. And then finally, we know that we can double tap with one finger in order to open an app or to type a letter or basically to activate whatever element of the screen we happen to be on at the time. So these are some fundamentals that we've already learned, and they really do qualify as predictable. Because if you imagine any app that you're in, that's going to pretty much work across the board. All right. So what we need to do now is we need to begin to look at the predictable ways in which apps can be set up. Now, I said to you before that, of course, there are always exceptions. This is not a 100% guaranteed thing. There are apps that don't conform to this, and that's fine. And some of them work with VoiceOver, and maybe occasionally one won't. But basically, there are certainly exceptions, but quite often you're going to find that an app conforms to one of several predictable patterns in the layout of the app and in how you therefore know to navigate that app. So we're going to take a look at least two, probably a few types of these today. And I want to point out very, very quickly, we are teaching navigation skills right now. So when we demonstrate these apps today, we are not going to be teaching you in depth how to use that particular app because there's so much that can be done in each of these apps that would just be impossible to do. So today is not about learning how to use a specific app, but rather how to navigate apps in general and how to figure out these patterns and what to do with them. Our experience labs on Wednesday will give us a chance to go deeper into different apps and to demonstrate features and functionality. But remember, as we said at the beginning of this course, it is not our goal to teach you step by step for everything because there's no possible way that anyone could remember that. What we need to do is to teach you how to get around and how to figure things out for yourself so that when you encounter an app, you know that it's doable. You know that you can get through it and you can figure out what to do. And then if you still have questions about features and functionality of an app and what a particular app does and how to do it, then you have a few options for getting help on that. for one thing, you can come to our Tuesdays with TTJ sessions, especially when we're doing perhaps an app overview or certainly a help session, and you can ask your questions. Another way to do it is to use the user guide. Apple releases user guides for every device and the current version of iOS, iPad OS, tvOS, and so on. And they have not, at least as of the other day, I didn't check again here today or anything, but as of the other day, they've not updated it in Apple Books this year. So maybe they figure it's just easier to just do it for everybody in web version. And so go to Safari or whatever your favorite web browser is and do a search for put the words Apple support at the beginning of it, because that will guarantee that you're getting the correct result from the Apple support page. So put something like Apple support iPhone user guide, or Apple support iPad user guide, Apple support Apple TV user guide. You get the idea. And then probably the first result will be the one you want. And there's a table of contents. You can expand and collapse different sections, and you can read anything you want. So if your questions, for example, pertain to the music app, and how do I create playlists, and how do I, how do I add songs to my library, and how do I play radio stations? Well, we'll be able to answer that for you on Tuesdays, and we may even demonstrate it at a lab. But really and truly, if you want a quick answer, the user guide's going to have it. It's going to have all the details. Apple support has lots of other individualized articles too. And of course, you can check YouTube. You can Google other places, Mac Rumors, 9 to 5 Mac. These are all Apple Insider. These are all great resources because they do articles on things of that nature. And of course, don't forget the community at large, just, your family, your friends, your coworkers, Google searches, and even our listservs. Only Apple Talk and Support is the list that Trainer Cliff and I run. And we have lots and lots of people on that list who are very, very knowledgeable and very kind and willing to help. And Cliff and I help as well. But it's, with our other jobs and so on, a lot of times we don't have to. We really just can kind of let it's a well-oiled machine at this point, as the expression goes. And so we certainly are around and we're reading them. And if we feel we can contribute something, we absolutely jump in as well. But quite often the other list members answer the questions, and they do a fantastic job. So that's a great way to get information as well on the Only Apple Talk and Support list, which we've talked about already. All right. So again, predictable patterns, apps that are laid out, that are in a certain way, that conform to a certain standard. We're going to talk about several today. The first two types of predictable pattern apps that we're going to talk about are tabbed apps and list apps. Tabbed with tabs at the bottom, and then list apps. We're going to start with tabbed apps. And there are several of the sort of pre-installed Apple apps, or first-party apps, if you will, that absolutely conform to that standard. And the first one on your iPhone is none other than the phone app. I mean, imagine that, the iPhone actually being used as a phone, right? Who would have thought? So we're going to go ahead and demonstrate that app first and explain what I mean when I say tabbed apps. Again, one more time, remember, we're not teaching every feature, every function, because that's just not even reasonable. Got an iPhone here.
Messages, conversations.
Okay, got my iPhone.
Dock, messages. Double tap to open.
I know from experience, from how I have it set up, that the phone app is at the bottom left of the screen. It might be for you as well. And then again, maybe not. And of course, that is the dock. Remember the dock? One of those home screen components. The dock is the same on any page of the home screen. So I know at the bottom left, I'll find phone.
Phone.
And there it is. And basically, it'll have a badge.
Double tap to open.
You know what a badge is? And the badge count will reflect how many missed calls or voicemails you have. So let's double tap on this to open it up.
Phone.
Now, if we touch the bottom left of the screen and we begin to swipe right, what we're going to find is that there are 5 tabs at the bottom of the screen. And whichever tab you want, you're going to double tap to select it. Once you've selected it, the rest of the screen changes. So whichever tab is selected at the bottom determines what the rest of the screen has on it and what it looks like, or in our case, sounds like. Again, there are 5 tabs you're going to hear: favorites, recents, contacts, keypad, and voicemail. For the vast majority of our iPhone users, you're going to have visual voicemail as part of your iPhone. That's one of the benefits of an iPhone is it's random access voicemail. You don't have to listen to each message in order, and it's visual voicemail. So you can see, or VoiceOver can read the who called, and even a transcript of what they said in addition to listening to the audio. And nowadays with live voicemail, you can even hear the message as it's being left. That's a little bit dicey with VoiceOver because it's something where VoiceOver is trying to read as the message is being recorded. And so it can often repeat itself, and I don't know if that will be able to be improved. I wouldn't call it a bug. It's just kind of maybe a quirk would be even a bit too strong. It's just kind of the nature of how it works. As I said, I don't know what will happen going forward, if Apple will be able to improve upon that. Perhaps they already have. I can be honest with you. I've intended to try it in the 17.1 beta that I'm beta testing, and I haven't done that yet, and I really should, just to see what happens. But even regardless of my findings, I wouldn't be allowed to share them with you anyway until 17.1 actually is released to the public. So really doesn't matter in that sense. But you can do that. It's called live voicemail. And the best part about live voicemail that does work just fine with VoiceOver is you can actually answer a call as the person is leaving the message. I should also point out that this applies to FaceTime and FaceTime audio as well, not just regular phone calls. Excuse me. Now, the other thing you'll find is that with the visual voicemail, you do get the audio recordings. You have the option of saving those even outside of the phone app. You have the option of calling the person back. So it's a very robust voicemail system that most iPhone users are going to experience. There are a few carriers throughout the world that don't have visual voicemail, but it's a very small number. Of course, that's the far right tab. The other tabs, pretty much self-explanatory, right? Favorites, you can put people in that list that you call frequently. Recents, you can see who called recently, missed calls, or all of them. And of course, your contacts. It's the entire list of contacts. We'll be dealing with contacts pretty extensively on Wednesday in our experience lab, and the old traditional keypad if you need an actual dial pad to make a phone call by digits. So let's look at this now on the screen. Remember, I said these tabs are located across the bottom of the screen. And so we will touch the bottom left of the screen with one finger, and you will hear it, and you'll know which tab is selected as we swipe right through the tabs.
Favorites, tab 1 of 5. Recents, 1 item, tab 2 of 5. Selected, contacts, keypad, voicemail, 42 items, tab 5 of 5.
Now, you heard that recents had 1 item, and I'm going to check that out right now by tapping on recents here.
Recents, 1 item.
Double tap.
Walmart on the missed button.
And
2 of 2.
Up here you can choose
selected, all, button, missed, button, 2 of 2.
All or missed. And I have it set to all, but I can see what the calls are here. And I can see whether they're incoming or outgoing.
Walmart online pickup, outgoing. 1 call, iPhone, October 16th, 2023 at 1:35 p.m. Button.
So that's a call that
up or down to select.
That's a call that I placed a little bit ago, and you heard that it was outgoing and what time it was placed. There are rotor actions because you heard swipe up or down, so I can see
delete, report, more info, activate, default.
All right, now there must be a missed call here.
Clifton Antonio.
There's okay.
Incoming, missed, FaceTime audio. 1 call.
And I missed a call from Trainer Cliff a little while ago. We'll get back to him, but we ended up texting. So nevertheless, I knew I missed that call, and that's where it is. It shows me that was missed. So we can narrow this down and look at only the missed calls if we choose this button up here.
Edit, selected, all, missed, button, 2 of 2.
Right, so we can filter by just missed. You also notice that the edit button is at the top.
Edit.
And that is basically what's going to allow us to delete all of these or whatever we want to do. So that is the way that a tabbed app works. You select the tab, and then everything else on the screen changes. If we were to select contacts, the 3rd tab at the bottom here.
Tab bar, contacts, tab 3 of 5.
Now, the entire rest of my screen is different, okay?
Lists, back button.
Now we have my lists, which are basically lists are groups of contacts that you can create. I have the whole iCloud list, which is all of my contacts. I have like family, which is, close family members and so on. I have a TTJ list for all of my TTJ customers, and actually multiple lists for different purposes there. So you can have different contact groups. You can email all of them or do whatever you want then, right? Now, that's the back button at the top left. That's going to take me back to lists. That's another important thing you're going to learn about predictable patterns, is that oftentimes the upper left of the screen has a back button to take you to the previous screen whenever you are sort of deeper within a particular list or menu or whatever. The more menu choices you make, the deeper you go, right? But at the top left, there's always a back button. So
lists, back button.
Right now, it'll take me back to lists.
Lists, edit button.
And now I can't go back any farther. So now I have an edit button up there, but
add list button. Lists, heading, iCloud button, expanded. All iCloud 468 button.
So once I double tap on that to select it,
section index adjustable.
Now
lists, back button.
The back button is there again, and you can see that I have a place that I could go back to if in fact I wanted to do that. And if we went even deeper by selecting a contact, let's just find one randomly.
Apple Education.
Okay, there's a contact for Apple Education. So if I double tap on it,
Apple Education.
Actions available. I'm inside of it now.
Apple Education, message, call, video, mail, pay, Apple, contact photo and poster, button, phone, 800, notes.
Okay, so I'm in that contact. At the upper right is an edit button.
Edit button.
Because I'm in a contact card, if I want to edit that, oftentimes you'll find an edit button at the top right. But notice the top left is that back button.
Back button. Back.
And now I'm back at the list of contacts. And if I touch the upper left,
iCloud, heading, add button, lists, back button.
I can go even further back to my lists again. You'll notice that in this screen, my list of contacts, that
add button.
The top right is the add button. So you've already learned several predictable patterns here without even realizing it, probably. Let's talk about a few of them that we've learned. And if you're taking notes, this is a great opportunity to jot this down. So one predictable pattern that we've learned already is that oftentimes the upper right of the screen will have a plus button. It could be called add or new or create or something like that. But oftentimes it's found at the upper right corner of the screen. Now, not always. Some apps are going to have it at the bottom right of the screen. So again, you need to know that these are possibilities so you know where to look. Okay. And that's what it's about, is getting comfortable with having an idea of how and where things might be located. Upper right corner of the screen is a very common place for an add button or a plus symbol to create something. It also can be where the edit button is found. If you're inside of something that you've already created, you might find that there's an edit button at the top right of the screen instead of an add button. Now, in some cases, there is also going to be an edit button instead at the top left or sort of in the top middle. That's what we saw on one of those screens when we were as far back as we could go. It was just a slightly different location there. You will always know to check the upper left corner of the screen for a back button. That's another predictable pattern. Oftentimes, when you're in an app that has sort of, a progressive system of menus or choices, right? We select something and then that opens something else. And then we select another thing and that opens something else to take us even deeper. We're going deeper and deeper into this app, and we always know to check the upper left corner of the screen to find a back button. It will often announce the name of the previous screen along with saying that it's a back button. And you remember the long press gesture that we taught you. Double tap and hold, or one finger triple tap. You can often long press on that back button. If you're, let's say, 5 or 6 menus in rather than having to go back and back and back one at a time, you can also typically long press, and then you can choose which of the previous screens you want to go back to from a menu that appears. I will demonstrate that a little bit later in a different app, okay? But that is the back button at the upper left. Now, that's not to be confused with a browser back button in Safari when you're surfing the web, which is not located there on the iPhone. It's located at the bottom on the toolbar, because that's not the same type of app. That app has a toolbar along the bottom of the screen, and the rest of the screen is a website, whatever website you're visiting at the time. So you have to know that different apps look different, right? We're talking right now about these basic apps that have deeper and deeper, systems of menus and so on and choices. And we're also talking about tabs. And remember, the basic pattern of this app is that it's got tabs across the bottom of the screen on what VoiceOver calls the tab bar. Whichever tab we select then impacts what is shown up above on the rest of the screen. Again, in this app, we have favorites, recents, contacts, keypad, and voicemail. Now, you notice that we've selected contacts. I can show you that again.
Tab bar selected, contacts, tab 3 of 5.
We can move left and right with one finger to find a different tab.
Recents selected, contact, keypad, tab 4 of 5.
But again, what I'm trying to show you is that the rest of the screen is affected by which one I've selected.
Abode, Alicia, Maryland Allison, Regina, Apple Care, Apple Access.
All right, so these are my contacts, and that's because I have the contacts tab selected. If I go down here and select the keypad instead,
tab bar, keypad.
Now I don't have contacts on my screen. I have a keypad.
Phone number, text field, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right? So if I want to call, and because I'm on direct touch typing, I can type very quickly. If I want to call something like, I know the number for Delta Airlines by memory. So if I want to call
5, delete.
If I make a mistake, there's a delete button at the bottom. Down here to the right of the
pound call button.
There's a call button, which is actually at the bottom center above the tabs.
Call button.
If you have made a mistake, type a 5 in there. Now you'll notice that
0 pound call button delete.
So that's sort of below the star 0 and pound center. Sort of bottom center of the screen, but above the tab bar is the call
button,
and to its right
delete
is delete.
5.
Double tap that.
0 8.
So if I want to call
8 0 2 1 2 1.
Okay,
2.
I called Delta Airlines. You can look up here.
Phone number 800-221.
Now I don't have them in my contacts for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But if I want to call them now, I just give them a call with this
call button.
Bottom center of the screen.
3.
Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, hold on.
Delete.
My fault.
3.
Okay, now try that again.
Call.
There we go. It's calling them. And I don't have it on speakerphone. I can do that.
What can I
More
help you
info.
with today?
Flight information.
Which are you calling to do? You can say plan a trip, change my reservation, check the status of my flight.
Okay, and I just did a 2-finger double tap, or as we know it, the magic tap, to hang up there. But I did that to show you that we did really call Delta legitimately, and I put it on speaker. I will explain a little bit about how that's done, but that's not the purpose of this teaching right now. What we accomplished very well was that we showed you how to use the tabs to select keypad, and I made a call there. You can see this call in my recents now.
Tab bar, contact, recents. Edit, but selected, all, missed, button, 800-221-1212. Outgoing.
And while we're at it, let's go ahead and add them to contacts, because why not? I mean, I sort of was going to save that kind of thing for Experience Lab on Wednesday, but why not? Our whole goal here is to teach you how easy it is to do these things. We know there are rotor actions. We should also be able to long press, by the way, for our non-voiceover users. I believe if we do this, long press.
Preview. 800.
Yep, we get the same options, I think.
Unknown. Call button. Message button. Add to existing contact. Create new contact. Dismiss context menu.
And if we were using the rotor, that would be under more. You would swipe up or down till you hear more and then double tap and you could choose to create a new contact. I'll do it from here.
Create new contact. But text field is edit. Text field is editing. First name.
I'm not going to put a first name in because it's just a company. I don't have a person specifically that I work with at Delta. They are our airline of choice for my family and me, but we're just going to swipe over here to
last name, company, text field,
company.
Double tap insertion point at end.
And I'll call it Delta, Delta Airlines.
E-L-O-A.
Oops.
A space Delta.
And we can already have a capitalized for each word. And Delta Airlines. Let's check it out.
Last name, tech company, text field is editing. Delta Airlines. Character.
Okay, sounds good. Let's swipe to the right here.
Clear text. Remove null.
Now you just learned another predictable pattern, which is that oftentimes to the right of the current edit field, there is a clear text button. Whenever you're inside that edit field, you can quickly delete everything you've typed by swiping to the right of the edit field you're currently in.
Clear text button.
And double tapping on clear text.
The rotor to access
and that's typically like an X for those who can see it, I believe. Now we have the option here. There's already a phone number in here because remember we made the call and we used that call to create a contact. We didn't do this from scratch. So the phone number is already in here, which is why you have this remove button.
Remove null.
But go to the right.
The phone button.
And again.
8002.
And there's their phone number. Now I want to change it from phone because that's the category of it, but I want to choose like main. You can choose like home, iPhone, mobile, school, work, pager, all sorts of different options, but
phone button, cancel button,
fax,
label, heading.
We're picking the label.
Edit, search, dictate.
We can edit the labels. We can search
field
for a label or even dictate.
Mobile,
but
home, work, school, iPhone, Apple Watch, main.
There's main. Let's look at some of the other ones.
Home fax, work fax, pager, other, add custom label.
You can add custom label. I've added a few.
Alarm monitoring service, notifications, emergency, work mobile, enable FVN plus.
Okay, we're going to go back.
Other, page, work, home fax, main.
It's main.
Main.
Double tap. So now you can see.
Clear text. Add phone. Button.
That.
Main. Remove. Null. Main. Button.
It's called main and it still has the number in there.
Editing. 800. 200.
Now there's other things we can do. We can clear that one.
Clear text. Button.
So you'll notice that once I've selected the type of phone number that it is or the label, it puts me in that edit field as if I want to type the phone number in, which is why you now saw the clear text there. If you go up here.
Last name. Company, Delta Airlines, remove, null.
The clear text button is not there because that's not the edit field that I'm in. Instead, now it's in the phone number field because that's the field that I'm in. But I'm going to let it alone because the number's already correct.
Main, button, text.
And you notice, listen to this too.
Activate to choose type.
It tells you right there, activate to choose type when it said main button. So again, listen to your hints. But over here now.
Text field is editing.
There's the phone number and it's already good. So I'm not going to change it and I'm definitely not going to clear it. And then there's other options for other fields that we can add or more of the same, like
add phone button.
Add phone. If they have an alternate phone number for Delta that I want to add, maybe Delta Vacations or something like that, I could do that. Not going to do that right now, though.
Add email. Button.
You can add email, multiple ones of those, and you can pick a label for those too, like home, work, so on.
Add pronouns. Button.
I'm not going to do that.
Ringtone. Default.
We can choose a custom ringtone.
Text tone.
Custom
default.
text tone.
Add URL. Button.
We are going to add a URL because I'll put their website in here. So double tap that.
Add text field is editing. URL. Insertion point at start.
Swipe to the left to see the label.
Homepage. Button.
Homepage. That's good.
Text field is editing.
Let's type it in there quickly. Now we want to put HTTPS. My colon, I think, is going to have to be on the next screen with the numbers.
Comma, percent, ampersand, question, colon,
I
HTTPS.
My slash might be on the main screen.
Numbers, period, slash.
Yep.
Add pronoun, slash.
And it's really just delta.com. I'll put the www in there just in case. I don't think you need it, but there's a period on the main screen here. Oops, that's the .com. So you can see how that all works. It's there, www. Where's my period? There it is. It's in a different place, but it's on this same screen because it's a special URL keyboard. So we have the option of entering that without having to switch to numbers every time. And we can put Delta Air. It's just delta.com, I think, is the web address. And there it is. And I put the .com is already here as its own choice. So I don't have to manually enter period .com. It's down here.
.com.
So let's read it.
Text tone. Deep remove. Homepage button. Text field is editing. https://www.delta.com.
Oops, I missed the W. Hold on, I gotta go back here.
Period. W.
Gotta put an extra W.
Text tone.
Let's try that again.
Button.
Read that again now. Make sure I got it right.
https://www.delta.com.
There we go. I missed the W the first time. So it's in there now. And it tells me where the insertion point is even. It's really, really cool. Listen to that. I want you to hear that.
Text field is editing. https://www.delta.com. Character mode. Insertion point between W and period at the 12th position.
I mean, this is...
Actions available. Use the rotor to access misspelled words.
Voiceover is really good. Praise God. Let me swipe to the right and you can see that...
Clear text. But add URL button.
You can add more websites.
Add address.
Add an address.
Add birthday.
You can add birthdays.
Add date.
You can add other kinds of important dates, anniversaries, and so on. We don't need that for Delta Airlines, though. So when we're done, we're going to locate the top of the screen. Here's another predictable pattern. Now get ready if you're taking notes. Oftentimes in these sort of ad screens, the upper left is your cancel button and the upper right is your confirm button. So let's touch the upper left.
Cancel button.
We don't want to do that. We want to go to the upper right.
Done button.
Done. Double tap. Now, what you'll notice is we're inside the contact because it was in our recents that we were. So we'll go to the upper. Oh, no, actually, we're not inside it. We're actually back on the main recent screen. But look what happens if I swipe to the right now.
Selected all button. Missed button. 2 of 2. Delta Airlines outgoing. 1.
Now their number is not listed just as a phone number because I added their name, so they are listed correctly as Delta Airlines. And as I said, I'm not sure really why I never had them in the contacts, probably because the number is very easy and I had it memorized. And nowadays I use the app more than anything when I want to make travel reservations, the Delta app as well. But basically you can call them and, I just never added their number to contacts. So now it's in there. So that is, that was a little bit of a side journey, but I think a useful one. What I want to build in you throughout this course is confidence. And we can spend the entire season trying to build skill sets based upon, okay, this is step number 1, do this. Now this is step number 2. And you'll remember that for about a week. And then someday you won't use it for, 2 or 3 months, and then you'll need to use it again. And now you'll say, how did we do that? And you'll have to either go back and find the recording, find the documentation, something like that. And that's not always practical, nor is it the best way to learn. So what I'm trying to do, what our team is trying to do this year is instill in you the confidence by showing you how easy it is to do these things that we just did. I just created a contact based on somebody in my recents. I typed in the information where I needed to, like their URL. I read it back. I realized I made a mistake. So I used the rotor by character and I swiped back up to where the W's were to add the extra W in there that I forgot the first time or that I missed. And then I hit done. We created the contact. It's all good to go. Everything's intact. And because I have iCloud, that contact for Delta is already synced across all of my devices. So the iPad that I'm using for this meeting has it. My other iPad has it. My, all my devices have it. And it is great. iCloud is wonderful. We're going to do a session on iCloud. That we are going to do because it's very important. iCloud stores all of your content and then wirelessly pushes it to all of your devices. So what you have on one device, you have on another. And that makes it so easy. And I could demonstrate that for you. But basically, you just know that it is on all of our devices now. So if I go back to my contacts here at the bottom of the screen.
Tab bar, contacts.
I want to go to the D's and I'm going to use the section index. We did talk about that a little bit. in one form or another. We mentioned the section index before, and that's what's going to quickly get you to a different letter of the alphabet, so I don't have to swipe through all the A's, B's, and C's to get to Delta.
Maryland Alice.
So I'll just use the right side of the screen here.
Section index adjustable.
Swipe down.
Cap B, Cap C, Cap D selected.
Now I'm kind of going to touch near the middle of the screen.
Delta Airlines.
Wow, look at that. Praise God, landed right on it. There were other D's.
Janie Vija, Delta, Delta Marriott, Ilana Duluth, David.
Okay, there are lots of other D's, but Delta Airlines is certainly there. And so that's how easy that was. All right. So now we saw the tabs at the bottom of the screen. Let's do one more review of this app. Bottom of the screen, we have
tab bar, favorites, tab, recents, tab, selected, contacts, tab, 3 of 5.
And if I let it alone long enough, it tells me how many tabs there are too. You heard that, right? And then
keypad, tab, voicemail, 42 items.
All right.
5 of 5.
Any one of these that I want, I just double tap it and it then changes what is on the rest of the screen. We learned a couple other predictable patterns as well. Don't forget, make a note of it. If you want to find an add button, it's oftentimes at the upper right corner of the screen, sometimes the bottom right corner. You will also occasionally find the edit button at the upper right, maybe the upper middle or left as well. If there is a back button to be found, it will be at the upper left. And we also said that if you are inside of a screen where you're creating something, for example, a contact card, you can find the cancel button at the upper left and the done button at the upper right. These are just some of the predictable patterns we're going to explore over the, throughout this course, but they're very useful and very important. And many, many apps conform to that same standard, as you're going to see when we move on. I'd like to now take a look at another pattern, another tabbed app that conforms to a very similar pattern here, and that is the clock app. Now, with the clock app, of course, we can set alarms and timers. We can even have multiple timers and give names to our timers. We can use a stopwatch, and we can view a world clock. So there's lots of things we can do in the clock app. And best of all, it's a tabbed app, so it's going to look very much like the phone app. Let me swipe up from the bottom of the screen to go home here. And should be on page 1 already.
Wolfram Elf, Be My Eyes.
I'm not actually.
Search, page 2, page 1 of 8.
But I know the clock app is, so I went back to page 1, and I'll find clock.
TV, app, book, news, contact, note, weather, map, remind, clock, 3:14 p.m.
We'll double tap it.
Double tap to open. Clock, 11:07 a.m.
Okay, now, at the bottom of the screen, we have tabs across the bottom, starting with the left-hand side.
Tab bar, world clock, tab, 1 of 4. Selected, alarms, tab, 2 of 4. Stopwatch, tab, 3 of 4. Timers, tab, 4 of 4.
And there we are, okay? 4 tabs on this one. We are already in the alarms tab, and so I would be willing to say with a fair amount of certainty that there's going to be an add button at the upper right corner of the screen to create a new alarm. And let's just take a look and see if that's true.
Add button.
Yep, there it is. What's to the left?
Alarms, heading, edit button.
Upper left has edit. Isn't that funny? I mean, it's really cool, right? Very, very similar. Now, all throughout my screen, I have multiple alarms that I've created, and I can toggle them on and off anytime that I want. So if I start swiping right,
sleep vertical line, wake up, heading.
There's my bedtime alarm that's actually not set in the clock app. It's set in the health app, but it's shown up here.
Tomorrow morning.
And it tells me that I can
change button.
I can make changes to it there. Then I have my regular alarms.
Other heading.
Under the category of other. And all the alarms that I've set that in the past are here, and I can turn them on and off if I want to reuse them.
8:52 a.m. alarm. Switch button off.
So if I want to turn that.
Double tap to toggle setting.
Double tap.
Available.
See, double tap to toggle setting.
Off. 9:03 8:52 a.m. alarm. Switch button on.
Now it's on.
Double tap to toggle setting. Actions available.
It also says there are actions.
Delete. Edit. Activate.
So we could edit the alarm. We can delete it. But if I double tap it again, now it turns it off.
Off. 8:52 a.m. Alarm. Switched button. Off.
So you just learned another pattern. A toggle oftentimes is able to be just double tapped to change the state of the toggle, on or off. Sighted users that don't use VoiceOver, it looks like a little switch. You can just switch it on, switch it off. All right. What if we want to create a new alarm? We go up to the upper right corner of the screen here.
Add button.
Double tap on add.
Activate to dismiss pop-up window button.
Now, the important thing I want you to understand, we could do this and we could show you how to create an alarm. It's very simple. But first, I want to show you the predictable patterns. Remember that when you're in an ad screen, I said the upper left typically has the cancel button. The upper right typically has the confirm button. They can go by other names, but they're going to do that thing. So let's tap the upper left here.
Cancel button.
There it is. And if you swipe left,
activate to dismiss pop-up window button.
There's also a little button to dismiss. It'll kind of do the same thing, right? It cancels without making any changes or saving any changes. Look at the upper right.
Save button.
There it is, kind of like our done button in contacts. Are you seeing this? Are you getting it? Are you getting that there are predictable patterns here? Now, this particular screen has the add alarm option. So if I continue swiping right,
3 o'clock. Picker item.
That's
adjustable.
Okay, so we're going to learn about another thing right now. This is a value adjuster. There is a way that I can double tap this and I can actually manually type in the hour and minute with a keypad, but it's not typically what we do, and it's not usually necessary because I can just swipe up or down. This is a value adjuster, and it's showing me the current time. So it wants to set the alarm based on that, which is 3 p.m. But let's say I want to set this for 9 a.m. or 9:30. So I can just swipe down repeatedly with one finger, one at a time.
2, 1 o'clock, 12, 11, 10, 9 o'clock, 9 of 12.
And now I'm at 9 o'clock. Now, there is something else you can do with these because a lot of times you might want to go farther than just a few swipes. So you can double tap, hold, and slide your finger. You'll hear a little clicking as it moves, and you're going to go a lot farther. I went back and
11 o'clock.
Okay, so you can do that too. And then the next one to the right.
16 minutes. Picker item.
There's your minutes. And that might be a great example of how you want to go further than just one at a time. I can do
15, 14, 13, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
But I also can
17 of 60.
I can also double tap, hold, and slide down to go back to the beginning of the hour. Just a little slide because it's not too many we want to go.
16 minutes.
So
picker item. Adjustable. 17 of 60.
See how far I went here.
59 minutes.
Whoops, I went one too far. It cycled around, didn't it? So just swipe up one.
0 minutes. 1 of 60.
Now we're at the 0 minute. And then the next picker is
PM. Picker item.
Up or down.
AM. PM. AM.
See? There are other things you can set in here then.
Repeat. Never. Button. Label.
So repeat is like if you automatically want it to repeat every Monday through Friday or every, Tuesday and Wednesday or whatever. And then label.
Alarm. Text field.
It just says alarm, but we can go in there and we can call it anything we want. Time for church, time for school, get up for work, whatever.
Sound. Voice of truth. Button.
And there's an option to change the sound of the alarm. We can pick from one of the many tones that Apple ships with their device, or we can buy tones from the tone store, or we can even use the GarageBand app or other methods to create custom ringtones as well.
Snooze. Switch button. On.
Do we want to allow the opportunity to snooze the alarm? That's a toggle.
Snooze.
And that's it. Now, I think there still is a way. If I double tap on the minute, I haven't done this in iOS 17, so I might be proven wrong here. But let's try it just for fun. There used to be a way to manually type the hour and minute if you want to. Again, it's not what we typically do, but you could. So we're at 11.
Save. 11 o'clock. 0 minutes.
We're at 11 a.m. Let's see if I want to do 9:15.
0 minutes.
I used to be able, and I should still.
1 of 60.
Double tap this.
Minutes. 0 minutes. Adjustable.
Yep, it brings up a keypad.
Up or down.
And I think I can type all three. I think I can do a 1 or 2 digit hour, depending on what it is, and a 2-digit minute. So like 9:00 would be 9 a.m. I'm going to do 9:15. So
9.
Here's the 9. Here's the
1. 5 a.m. 15. 9 o'clock. 15 minutes. a.m.
And you see that it changed that as well. So there are 2 ways to enter or select your time here. And that was just fun. I wanted to confirm that. Now, again, at the upper right is the save button.
Save button.
Upper left is cancel, and I don't really need to set this alarm, so.
Cancel button. 8:52 a.m. alarm. Switched button off.
And we're back.
Double tap to toggle setting.
But that's how easy it is to create an alarm. But the main point of this is you're seeing these patterns already recur, just like we saw in the phone app, how you can find the add button at the upper left. You can find done and cancel at the right and left, respectively, when you're inside that ad screen. And of course, the tabs in general, because the tabs are across the bottom here. So if I want to switch to the timers tab
bar, stopwatch, tab 3 of 4.
Might use a stopwatch sometime, but
timers,
tab
4.
And here again, we have now a different screen up at the top.
1 minute, label, start, 0 set, 10 minutes.
So what we have is the timers we've already used, but I bet there's an edit button at the upper left. I just checked. There is.
0 hours.
So go to the upper left.
Adjustable, 1 of 24.
And you'll find
edit button.
There it is, edit. Okay, at the upper left.
Timers, heading.
Then here's our list of timers.
Cancel, dimmed, button.
Nothing to cancel right now.
0 hours, picker item,
we can,
adjustable,
we
1
can
of 24.
Set our timer for
swipe up or down with 1 finger to adjust the value.
A certain number of hours.
10 minutes, picker item, adjustable,
certain
11 of 60.
Number of minutes.
Swipe up or down with 1 finger to adjust the value.
And again, these are just value adjusters. We just slide, we just swipe up or down with 1 finger to change the value, or we can double tap, hold, and slide if we want to go further. But, basically just 1 finger up or down.
11 minutes, 12 minutes, 13 14 minutes, 15 minutes, 14, 12, 11, 10 minutes, 11 of 60.
And you also know that this is really using the rotor to adjust the value, because if I turn the rotor away from that,
vertical navigation,
it's not going to work. But if I turn it back,
adjust value.
There's adjust value that just appears in the rotor when it's needed. I don't have to add it. Remember, we talked about that. So that's how to set your timer.
0 seconds. Picker item.
You can choose the number of seconds.
Start button.
There's the start button.
Label.
And you can label it.
Timer. Text field.
Okay.
When timer ends. Radio button.
When timer ends, you can change what sound it makes.
Recents. Heading.
Here are some recent timers that I had.
10 minutes. Activate 3 minutes. Activate to start timer. Actions available.
And you can look at the actions in the rotor.
Delete. Activate. Default.
We can reuse this timer by just simply double tapping it.
3 minutes. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Tab bar.
All right, so that's your list of timers. But again, the big thing here is these patterns, right? You're seeing that there are predictable patterns in these apps. Down at the bottom again, we could pick any one of these.
Alarms.
And it just
8:52 a.m. alarm. Switch button off.
Changes what's
double tap to toggle setting
on the rest of the screen. Okay, very, very easy and makes a lot of sense. Okay. All right, so that is the tabbed app, and you will find there are many apps that indeed do have tabs. The music app has tabs, the TV app has tabs, the news app has tabs. There are lots and lots of apps that Apple makes and other third-party apps that support the tabbed view. Just to really quickly demonstrate that, let's go into music. I'm not going to spend but a second in there. We'll just go into it real quick.
Safari, music, tab bar, selected, search, tab, 5 of 5.
And you already heard it landed on the tab bar itself. So let's look at these tabs.
Tab bar, listen now, tab, 1 of 5, browse, radio, library, selected, search, tab, 5 of 5.
And again, they affect what is on the rest of the screen. And also you'll find a common sort of set of app conventions within types of apps. Like this is what you'd consider a media app, right? Because it's music. So you notice there's a listen now tab at the bottom left. If you were to go into the TV app, the first tab is watch now. And in the Apple Books app, the first tab is reading now. So you get this idea that these apps are set up very similarly on purpose to make things really easy. So your media apps are often going to have the tab of sort of up next, what you're currently watching or listening to or reading or something, and additional recommendations and things of that nature. Then you'll find a tab that maybe has to do with store results or your own library of content. You'll find a search tab, right? So all of this is very, very predictable, which is the term we use, predictable patterns, right? It conforms to something very easy to remember, very easy to follow, very easy to understand. So far, we've talked about the Tab app. Now, I'm going to show you another kind of app, and I'm going to give you 3 examples of it, and that is the List app. Now, this is an app that presents a list of options, and you double tap on any one of the options to get more choices or to interact with that option. And you will, of course, find a back button where? At the upper left corner of the screen. So the first example of this is going to be the Settings app. So if we want to see a List app, we're going to go to Settings.
Dock, Music, Search, Settings. Double tap to open. Settings, App Store, button.
There are no tabs in this app. It's just a whole bunch of settings options. And so if we start at the upper left,
Settings, heading, search field, dictate, button.
We have our search and dictate so we can search for specific settings. But if we keep swiping to the right, we immediately get into the list. And the first option is our name.
Matthew, family, button.
And the family options. Then we see all the rest of our settings.
Airplane mode, switch button, off, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, on, cellular, button, personal hotspot, off, VPN, not connect, notifications, sounds and focus, screen time, general, button, control center, button, display and brightness, button, home screen and app library, button, accessibility, button.
Now, while we're here, I want to show you what I was talking about with the back button before. Accessibility is a very popular one, of course, for our VoiceOver users to go into, and you can go pretty deep in this. Every time you open something up, it's taking you like another level, another layer in here. So let's go to accessibility.
Vision, heading.
Let's go to VoiceOver.
VoiceOver, on, button. VoiceOver speaks items on the screen.
Let's go to verbosity.
VoiceOver braille, VoiceOver verbosity, button, punctuation, button.
And let's go to
customize how punctuate, speak hints, system notifications, button.
System notifications.
Notifications when locked, heading.
Now, we are how many layers deep? We went into accessibility, VoiceOver, verbosity, and system notifications. So you'll notice that the upper left corner of the screen is the back button, predictably, right where we'd expect it.
Notifications when locked, notification, verbosity, back button.
And if I double tap that,
system VoiceOver, back button.
So I can do that one at a time. But let me show you something else. Let's go back into, that was system notifications. Let's go into that again. And this time what I'm going to do is long press the back button instead of going one at a time.
Verbosity, back button.
And watch this.
Verbosity, button.
I now get a menu. I can choose whichever one I want to go back to.
Verbosity, VoiceOver, accessibility, button, settings, button.
So in one thing, I can go clear back.
Dismiss context menu.
Or I can dismiss it. I can go clear back to settings.
Settings, but settings, head, screen time.
See, and I didn't have to go through all of those individual menus that way instead. But that was that back button at the upper left of the screen. It's the same thing, right? And within each of these options, then are a bunch more choices on the screen so that we could do whatever it is that we're interested in doing. But you get the idea that this is a list. It's just one long list, a search option at the top, typically. And though not always, that wouldn't be a requirement, but it's very common. Back button at the upper left. And you can hold that back button in a long press to go multiple levels back if you're multiple levels deep, so you don't have to go one at a time. Let's give you another example of a list app, and that is the Messages app. The Messages app is where we send and receive our text messages and our iMessages, not to be confused with email messages, right? This is texting. Now, there are different kinds of texting that are supported on the iPhone. The iMessage is by far the best. iMessage is Apple device to Apple device. iPhone to iPhone, iPhone to iPad, iPad to Mac, whatever. It is Apple device to Apple device. iMessage gives you a lot of features and functionality that you will only find with iMessage. You can send large attachments of pretty much any type. You can send a Pages document. You can send anything you want. You can, of course, send video and photos. And if the photos or videos are too large, it will even create an iCloud link that a person can download them. You can have special effects You can have it, sound and look like there's confetti or fireworks or something in a person's message. You can send and receive money with Apple Cash. Of course, you can send audio recordings. There's so much that you can do with iMessage, just so much. But the Messages app also supports your traditional to non-Apple devices like to Android users, and that's going to be either what's known as SMS or MMS. SMS is just text only. You're just texting somebody. And then MMS is going to be multimedia messages, like if you're sending photos or, something. There are some things you can send with MMS, not as much as iMessage, but there are some. Any group message that has non-Apple users in it is automatically going to be MMS. When you have all Apple users, that's the best scenario because you can name your group. You can easily, add and remove people from your group. And it's just, you can start a group FaceTime call with all the people in your group. So it really is the best experience for you for sure. But sometimes you need to send to a non-Apple user. And so that's certainly available as well. And you don't have to make the distinction. You just start composing a message and your iPhone will know what the other person has, and it will choose the correct option for you. As a sighted user, you will see a blue bubble or a green bubble. The blue bubble indicates iMessage and the green one indicates non-iMessage. And so you'll have an idea. There are going to be different limitations, and some of them you may not expect, but there are certainly different limitations with each one, but iMessage is by far the best experience. So that's Apple to Apple. Now, the Messages app is going to present as a list. And again, there's going to be a search field. There's going to be an edit button because we can go in and we can make different changes to the list. But basically, there is a list throughout the whole screen of your message conversations. And if you're like me and you don't delete your conversations, you're going to have a ton of them. But if you double tap one, you're now inside of that conversation and you can continue the conversation with whomever it was. And then there's a back button at the upper left to take you back to the list of message conversations. So let's demonstrate this by going into the Messages app.
Doc, Messages. Double tap to open. Messages, Conversations.
Now you'll notice at the top,
Edit button.
That's at the upper left.
Edit button.
If you touch the upper right,
Compose button.
You'll notice there's a compose button. Remember how we said the plus button is often at the top right, and this is no exception. The upper right has a compose button where you can compose a brand new message. But at the upper left,
Messages, Edit button.
We have the edit button. And then in between is the title of the app.
Messages.
Now, if you go to the right,
Compose button.
There's compose.
Search field, dictate button.
There's our search and dictate button, so we can search conversations. Now, here's going to be my list. My list is going to begin with the 9 people that I have pinned to the top of the list, okay? You can pin your favorite and most important conversations to the top of the list. Up to 9 of them, I believe, is still the number. And that, to my knowledge, hasn't changed in iOS 17, although I haven't tried to pin more than that. So maybe it's changed, but I don't think so. So you can see.
Conversations. Kylie, pinned. Carson, pinned. Family chat, pinned.
And you're getting the idea. My family's in here. The family chat is a group chat with my wife and my 2 kids.
Jessica, pinned.
So, and you hear
actions available.
Actions available, which means you've got rotor options if you swipe up or down with one finger.
Drag Jessica, delete, hide alerts, mark as unread, unpin Jessica, activate default.
That means we also should be able to long press this to get options very similar to what we see in the rotor. Now, if we want to open this up, we can double tap it.
Jessica, pinned. Swipe, messages, your iMessage.
Okay, so now I'm inside of the message conversation. I would expect there to be a back button at the very upper left of the screen, below the status bar, of course, but still top left of the screen.
Back button.
And there it is. Now, when the message conversation opens, the keyboard may or may not be showing. Probably not.
Message, iMessage, text field. Double tap to edit.
But at the bottom center of the screen is the edit field where I can continue to type if I so choose. I can double tap on that and I can continue to type. If I swipe to the left,
apps button.
There's a button to open up our message apps. I'll demonstrate that, but
Messages. Your iMessage. Red Friday. Vertical scroll bar.
All right.
Your iMessage.
So there's the most recent message. I was telling my wife something there.
Your iMessage. Carson went to lunch.
Okay. And so that's a message, and then I can swipe to the left to keep going further back in the conversation.
Friday, 2:01 p.m. Your iMessage. Friday. Your iMessage. Jessica Volbrecht. Bumped it.
Okay, so that basically is how we continue to move back through the previous messages within that conversation, back and forth. I swipe to the right.
Your Friday, your iMessage. Okay, love ya. Friday, your iMessage. Friday, your iMessage. Read Friday.
And the most recent one is going to tell me whether the person read it or it was delivered. If the person has their read receipts turned on, which my wife does, so it says it was read. And then you notice something here that we haven't talked about yet.
Vertical scroll bar, 11 pages, 100% adjustable. Swipe up or down with one finger to adjust the value.
All right, so get ready to learn another predictable pattern. When you have a list app with something very, very long, in this case, it's a long conversation because I never delete it. So Jessica and I have used the same message conversation for I couldn't even tell you how long. There is a vertical scroll bar, so that this is one of those cases where there's a couple of different ways to do things. You remember learning about the 3-finger scroll? We talked about 3-finger scroll before. If you swipe up and down with 3 fingers, it's moving page by page within a long document. If you swipe 3 fingers to the left or to the right, it changes the page like in a book or on the home screen. This would be the case for a 3-finger swipe up or down. It's a long, long conversation. But for a sighted user, that's a 1-finger scroll. But instead, they've also given you this vertical scroll bar that makes it easy. You say, well, I don't see that in my message. Well, your conversation probably isn't long enough yet, but you will when it is. And when it's needed, it appears there. And basically, for a sighted user, you just grab the scroll bar and swipe up and down to your heart's content. For a voiceover user, you're going to use the scroll bar with 1 finger. So we swipe over to it here.
Messages. Your read from vertical scroll bar, 11 pages, 100%.
We can swipe up with 1 finger.
90%, 80%, 70%.
And now if I swipe to the left,
your iMessage.
It's a whole different part of the conversation than what we were at. It's a whole different part. And again, I can go back to that scroll bar and I can swipe back to the end, or I can 3-finger swipe up.
Page 11 of 11.
And there we go. Now, I also would point out that this is an interesting situation in the messages conversation. It says there's 11 pages in that scroll bar. There's probably more than that. What will happen is as I get close to page 1, which is closest to the top, it's going to sort of almost redraw, and there's going to be even more pages available because that's how long this conversation is. So I expect there's way more than 11 pages here. And the same thing is true for a sighted user. As you continue to scroll, more will become available if you have a long enough list to warrant that. But again, to the right of that is the list of apps here.
Red Friday, vertical apps button.
And if you double tap on apps, it brings up the messaging apps that you can use, like so.
Camera.
Now, first, let's
double tap camera. Double tap and hold, then drag to reorder menu items.
All right, so you can reorder them as well. And then the first one is camera.
Camera.
You also have
photos.
Photos for your existing photos you want to add to a message.
Stickers.
Stickers.
Apple Cash.
Send and receive money.
Audio.
Audio. Record an audio message.
Hold. Location.
That's your check-in option you might have been hearing about in iOS 17. Let somebody know your current location and let them know when you get home, basically, and so on.
More.
And there's more.
More.
And more would be all the rest of your iMessage apps, because many, many do exist. A lot of times you don't even realize it because they get installed with some third-party app that you have. So if you want to see the rest of them, you choose more. This has just the most common ones here, probably. And if I want to get out of this, I either look for a dismiss button, which I didn't see right now. So let's look again.
Camera.
Nope. So we're going to employ our 2-finger scrub. And there we go.
Back button.
We're now out of it. And you know, at the upper left, there's still a back button. Now, let's take a look at something else. Give me a second here.
Messages. Red Friday. Vertical apps button.
What's to the right of that?
Message, iMessage, text field. Double tap to edit.
That's how we bring up the keyboard. If we double tap, then it will say is editing, and you'll have the keyboard on the lower half of the screen. And just like when we demonstrated the keyboard the other day, you can start typing. You can actually continue your conversation. So let's send a message to Trainer Cliff because he's in this conversation, I assume. In this Zoom call right now in this class.
Back button.
Upper left.
Back button. Conversation.
Let's go to Cliff here.
Cliff, yes, please. 1:47 p.m. Messages.
Double tap. And he had asked me for something which was right before, a little bit before class. I didn't do it yet, so I'll tell him I'm working on it, which he knows I'm not working on it right now, of course, but that's what we're going to say. I will just say I'm on it. So we're going to find the edit field.
Message, iMessage.
Down near the bottom center of the screen, we're going to double tap.
Message, text field is editing, iMessage.
And of course, now we have a keyboard, so we can type.
Cap pipe. Apostrophe. Spot T.
Let's read that.
Message. Text field is editing. I'm on it. Character mode.
Exactly. And how did I know where to tap to read it? Well, praise God, it's a God-given talent that you can practice and develop some muscle memory. Upper middle of the, kind of right in the middle of the screen, just above the keyboard, is that edit field.
Messages. It's message. Text field is editing. I'm on it. Character mode. Insertion point at end.
Above the letters U, I, and O, you have your quick bar.
Why? It's it. Send it. It's.
Okay. That's going to have suggestions and so forth. That's the quick bar. Remember that. Over here, just to the right of the edit field, is the
text field is editing. I'm on it. Send button.
Send button.
Send using iMessage. Double tap and hold to add effect.
So I could send this to Cliff right now. And after I send it to Cliff, if I have regrets and wish, maybe I would have added a message effect, I can undo the send. So let's send it.
Send message.
And I say, whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to unsend that. Go back to the left.
Messages.
Here it is.
Your iMessage. I'm on it.
Swipe up and down.
React. Reply. Undo. Send.
Undo. Double tap.
Effect. Your iMessage. I'm on it. 3:43 p.m.
Yeah.
Your iMessage. Sorry, I never. Today. Click your delivered. Cliff. Yep. Today. You unsent a message. Button. Vertical apps, but message, text field is editing, iMessage.
Now, if I go here,
messages, you unsent a message, vertical, you unsent.
I unsent that. So now there's another way I could do that too. I could have edited, and I want to point out, if you are not a VoiceOver user, long press is the way to do it. And actually, I prefer the long press even for VoiceOver rather than the rotor because it gives you more options, if I can recall correctly. So I'm going to, this time, instead of unsending it, I'm going to send it, but then I'm going to long press and I'm going to edit it. So let's do that. Let's say I'm on it. Again, we're going to do that.
Apostrophe that's spot T. Message text field is editing. I'm on it. Insertion point at end.
Send it and then
send button.
We're going to edit it.
Send message cap I. Your I delivered. Your iMessage. I'm on it. Reply. Undo. Send. Edit button. Text field is editing. I'm on it. React. Active. Return. T. Space.
We're going to say I'm on it.
Space.
Soon.
S.
Okay, you only get like 30 seconds to undo a send or to choose edit. So you have to be quick about that. All right, now maybe it's a minute, I forget, but I think it's 30.
Message, iMessage.
So we've said I'm on it soon.
Apps button.
Swipe to the left because it's not where you normally find the send button.
Send edit button.
You can say send edit.
Text send edit. Text field is editing. I'm on it soon.
It actually is to the right of the edit field. It's just there's another edit field here that says
message, iMessage, text field.
iMessage, because that's for a new message. Not a new message, but the next one you're going to send instead of the edit. So it can be a bit deceptive if you don't know what you're looking for. Swipe back to the left.
Send edit. Text field is editing. I'm on it soon. Character
and
mode. Send edit button.
Send edit.
Message. Text field is edited. Apps. Messages.
Let's look at it.
Delivered bullet edited.
Delivered edited.
Your iMessage. I'm on it soon.
Okay. Now let's send Cliff a message with effects this time. So this is going to say testing.
Cap T.
I gotta toggle my VoiceOver because it was not.
VoiceOver on.
Now we're good. All right.
Delete.
There we go. We're good now.
Cap R.
All right. So
Cap G space testing space.
somehow my direct touch typing wasn't working. I could have also probably gone to the rotor and switched it out of direct touch and back to it, but I just toggled voiceover. All right, so we're going to send this one with an effect. So here's the edit field.
Message text field is editing, testing, character mode.
To the right is the send button.
Send button.
Now listen to this.
Send using iMessage. Double tap and hold to add effect.
That's what we're going to do. Double tap and hold to add an effect, or long press. Triple tap is also good.
Send with effect.
There are two kinds of effects, bubble effects and screen effects. You're on bubble by default.
Selected. Bubble button. 1 of 2. Screen button.
But
2 of 2.
You can easily change that. We're going to do a screen effect, but I want to show you the bubbles first.
Slam button. Loud, gentle, invisible ink. Close button.
And you can close it if you don't want to do any of that. Slam, gentle, loud, and invisible ink. They're really cool and they're a lot of fun. But we're going to do a screen effect.
Close.
So
slam, but screen, but selected. Send with effect.
Now what we'll do is we'll choose
bubble button. Selected. Screen button. To echo. Copies of the message bubble echo across the screen, expanding and shrinking as they rise and swirl, then disappear.
Now, because there is such a description and a visual representation here of these, I believe, these are all on separate pages. There are like 8 or 10 different effects, and this is actually separate pages for each effect. So that 3-finger scroll to the left or to the right is very useful here to quickly get to the next or previous effect. Here's a 3-finger swipe to the left.
Page 2 of 8, spotlight.
Now, if you swipe to the right,
send with spotlight button.
You'll see that
close button. Page 2 of 8, spotlight, adjustable.
There's also a page selector,
page,
but
set spotlight. The conversation darkens. Then a bright spotlight of white light illuminates your message as particles of dust float through the light.
So let's send that, and that'll actually read that for Cliff, and he'll hear a sound effect too, and so on. I don't know if you'll be able to hear the sound on Zoom, but I'm going to send it with Spotlight.
Send with Spotlight button. Send with full screen effect. The conversation darkens. Then a bright spotlight of white light illuminates your message as particles of dust float through the light. Your iMessage, testing, message, text field.
Okay. But again,
numbers.
The cool thing here that you need to understand is how easy this all is, because it uses these predictable patterns. The back button is in the upper left.
Back button, edit button.
And we're back to the main list of message conversations. There's one more app I'm going to show you right now that sort of has the same pattern, but we're not going to spend any time in it today because it does warrant a separate session, and that is the Apple Mail app. There's so much you can do with Apple Mail besides just your basic send and receive. You can do rich text formatting. You can unsend a message. You can schedule a message to be sent at a specific time. You can add mail rules and multiple mailboxes and smart mailboxes. And so there's so much that we're not going to do it today. But I just want to show you that the basic app is the same pattern as settings and messages. It is a list. So if we open it.
Weather, mail.
All right, we've opened message. We've opened mail.
3:49 p.m.
At the very bottom of the screen.
Toolbar, updated just now, 1,000.
That is our updated. That tells us how many unread messages we have in the specific inbox we've selected. It tells us when it last checked. If we want to find the compose button on the iPhone,
compose button,
instead of being at the upper right, this is going to be one of those cases where it is at the bottom right. Compose is at the bottom right on the iPhone.
Compose button.
What's at the top right?
Tap and hold to bring up drafts.
What's at the top right?
Edit button.
The edit button, because at the top left is a back button.
Search, edit, all inboxes, heading, mailboxes, back button.
See, mailboxes, back button. I'm inside the unified inbox known as all inboxes. That's where all my email comes to, whether it's sent to my iCloud addresses, my Comcast address, my Google address. I often use the unified inbox, although sometimes I do make use of smart mailboxes, so I can see like only the messages with attachments, or only the messages that came in today, or only the unread. But this is the all inboxes that I'm in right now. The important thing is there's a back button at the upper left, right where we'd expect it.
Tab M. Mailboxes. Back button.
And at the upper right is edit.
Edit button.
And at the bottom right is compose.
Toolbar. Compose button.
And I'm not going to get into the reasons why I suspect it's set up that way. But the whole rest of the screen, again, is you have your search.
All edit, but search field, dictate button.
And then your list of messages.
Messages, unread. Loy, Tom, unread. Karen and Pat, unread. Staples, unread. Target, unread. Customer care at schoolcafe.com.
And all of these can be read by double tapping to open it up. There are also long press actions and rotor actions. Again, I told you we're not going to spend any time in the mail app today because there's just so much that you can do with it that it definitely requires a separate session. But I just want you to have the confidence to begin to explore because there's no reason why you can't.
I've had it to where the vertical scroll bar disappear for some reason. Is there a way to bring it back if it disappears?
Well, really, there isn't. It just kind of appears when it is needed, and in documents where it's not long enough to be required, it won't appear at all. If you're in something where it has been there and then seems to have disappeared, about the best thing I would suggest is to try to leave and return to whatever app or whatever document you were looking at the moment, because if it is needed, it will just appear.
Okay, so there's no command or anything to just call it up if it's not there.
Right. Now, in its absence, you can try a 3-finger swipe up or down on the whatever it is that you're in, because that will do the very same or very similar thing to the vertical scroll bar. It's just not quite as quick, but it will do it. And I do believe there may, if you're using, which we haven't gotten into keyboards yet, but I think if, Bluetooth keyboard users, there may be a command. I have to double check, or maybe Trainer Cliff knows it, but we'll probably save that for the keyboard session anyway. But yes, that would be my next recommendation. If you want to scroll, is 3-finger swipe up. If it is a section index, like the one in contacts, that will always be along the right side of the screen. If it's just a vertical scroll bar, that is going to kind of be it's usually sort of like lower middle, but it's a little bit harder to be precise about because it depends on what else is going on the screen. But a section index where you're going through like an alphabetical list is always going to be along the right-hand side.
Oh, okay. So it might be in the middle though, if it's the scroll bar. Not the
right. Yeah. Like in messages there, that was because, and it was lower down on the screen. Now, once I opened the keyboard by double tapping on the edit field, it kind of was a little bit higher up because the keyboard now takes the lower half of the screen, or lower third of the screen. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not great at the measurements there, but that gives you an idea.
And this one I'm just fuzzy on, and that's the vertical scroll bar you were talking about. When it's at 100%, are you getting the latest, referring to messages, are you getting the most current latest messages in that scroll bar then?
Yes. Oh, yes. 100% is going to be the latest, the closest to the bottom, whatever, because remember, the conversation goes backwards.
Okay. And I hardly ever use it because it's a little confusing for some reason. I haven't mastered the concept of it yet. So is it any faster if I'm trying to find something earlier, to use that scroll bar, or I just usually, keep, swiping backwards till I get to what I want?
Yeah, I mean,
it depends on how far back you're thinking.
Yeah, it's personal preference.
If it's like weeks and months, then you probably better use the horizontal, the vertical scroll bar.
I've had a few like that, so I'm trying to figure maybe the scroll bar is a good idea. So do you just kind of judge and go up, I don't know, a little bit at a time?
Yeah, you almost have to do some detective work. And again, the other really important thing to stress is that those pages are probably false readings. In other words, that it's not, and that's not actually a bug. It's that they only show so much being available until you reach the bottom or the top. And if you keep going, then more is going to appear. I don't know if you use an Apple TV at all, but it's the same thing. Like if you have a list of, let's say you show all the premium movies on Stars, and it'll say like 1 of 30. Well, there's more than 30 premium movies available on Star. So once you get to like, it'll say like 27 of 30, 28 of 30, and then all of a sudden it'll be 29 of 100. And now a whole bunch more appeared, and that's the same thing with this, even with the scroll bar. Like it told me there were 11 pages in that conversation with my wife. I know there's more than 11 pages there. I just know there are because I know I never delete that,
Right.
So that's going back years. So I would just use if it's going to be a ways back, I would use the vertical scroll bar and just keep going, or the 3-finger swipe down is another way to do it. Thanks everybody for joining. God bless you all and have a great evening. We have our Tuesdays with TTJ tomorrow, Experience Lab on Wednesday. We'll look forward to seeing you all back. Take care, everybody.
We'd like to thank you again for joining Voiceover In&Out 2023. Didn't get your question answered? Need additional training? Send us an email at support@ttjtech.biz or support@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with the U. That's STURITUP.com. I'm Trainer Cliff. Thanks for joining us and see you next time. God bless.